Greetings, sixth grade. This is the lesson on Friday, the 9th of January. So we've gone through several videos this week, ranging from epic poems all the way through to the whole concept of city-states in Greece. But to round off this week, we will take a little bit of a step back from that and to find out how the alphabet came into being. Now, we know the alphabet in English is 26 characters long, but it had its start from somewhere. Now, in previous lessons, especially that in the Fertile Crescent, they had the cuneiform style of writing. But the reason why they had scribes and people educated enough, a very few that are educated enough to actually write, is because their alphabet in their form of pictographs was about 4,000 characters. Now, can anyone seriously out there, among you guys out there, learn an alphabet that's over 4,000 characters? Didn't think so. So, they, throughout the course of history, they realized that they needed to try to compress the characters down and actually make them more phonetic sounding, so that it became simpler for people to take on board. More people were able to use the alphabet, or the what we would call the alphabet these days, compressed from the start, which is 4,000 characters, all the way down to about 22 or 26 characters. And in this video, we'll see the development of the form of writing that we now know as the alphabet, but it all started in Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent with cuneiform. Take a look at this video. I think you'll like it.
In an earlier lecture, we saw how writing enabled the peoples of the Fertile Crescent to form cities, conquer their neighbors, and build empires. With a tool so valuable as writing, it is not surprising that some clever people would attempt to refine it. Not all writing systems are created equal. If you want your words to be remembered and learned by as many people as possible, what you write does not matter nearly as much as how you write it. As you may recall, the first writing appeared about 3500 BC. This early cuneiform was merely a collection of drawings or pictographs. In this system, every word had its own corresponding drawing. Communicating via pictographs has several limitations. 1. If someone is bad at drawing, then your message might be lost. You might think you had 300 horses instead of 300 cattle. 2. It is difficult to represent something abstract with a picture. It's easy to draw a picture of a cow. It's less easy to draw a picture of, say, equality. Even if a society had a word for such a thing, without a way to write it down, development of such an idea would be very slow. Problem 3. If every word has its own symbol, you end up with a massive writing system with thousands of characters. This makes a writing system very hard to learn, resulting in a low literacy rate. The fewer people who can read and write, the less useful writing is. Conversely, the more people who can read and write, the more useful writing is. Some smart people realized this and decided to find ways to make the writing system more simple and thus more accessible to more people. Over 3,000 years, cuneiform underwent some drastic changes to overcome these limitations. To solve problem 1, drawings came to be replaced with the wedge-shaped summaries we now recognize as proper cuneiform, a writing system that's similar to modern Japanese kanji. To solve problem 2, symbols came to represent the sounds or phonemes of the words they represented, whereas before they had represented things themselves. This was a huge development. It moved the subject of writing from objects in the real world to sounds in a spoken language. Now, though I cannot come up with a symbol for equality, I can still write it. I, quail, I, tea. Equality. Hooray! This style of writing, called symbolic phonemes, would reach its apex in Egyptian hieroglyphics. A modern example would be Japanese hiragana. The breakdown into phonemes, in turn, began to solve problem 3. Though there are thousands of things you might want to write about, there are only so many sounds a human being can make. Since you only need one symbol for each sound, many redundancies are removed. If I tried to write cat, cattle, and catalog, in the old style, I would have had to have a unique character for cat, a unique character for cattle, and a unique character for catalog. With this new style, I can spell cat with the symbol for cat, I can spell cattle with the symbol for cat, plus the symbol for tail, and catalog with the symbol for cat, plus the symbol for tail, plus the symbol for log, spelling cattail log. Thus, anytime I want to represent a particular sound, I can use the same symbol. With this refinement, cuneiform was reduced from thousands of characters to about 400. This allowed literacy to expand and empires to grow in size. Yet even with this dramatic reduction, anyone trying to read cuneiform would still need to learn those 400 characters. This might not seem so bad to someone who can read Chinese, which still holds on to thousands of characters. But we Westerners, used to a mere 26 characters, would find this daunting, to say the least. So how did we get down from 400 characters to 26? The Phoenicians seem to have begun this process. About 1050 BC, the Phoenicians did away with the symbolic pictographs of cuneiform and invented simple characters to represent specific sounds. But the Phoenicians did not stop there. Rather than having a character for each syllable, like Japanese hiragana, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, the Phoenicians realized the distinction between vowels and consonants. They noticed that the K sound remains the same in all of these syllables. From there, they simply assigned a character to each consonant. By doing so, they were able to reduce the 400 characters of cuneiform to a mere 22 characters, one for each consonant. With its limited number of characters, the Phoenician alphabet soon replaced all other writing forms in the West. By the end of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, it had replaced cuneiform. All future alphabets would be derived from the Phoenician model. Hebrew and Arabic are modern examples of Phoenician-style alphabet, or abjad, where characters represent only consonants, and the reader must supply the vowels from context. The inclusion of vowels in an alphabet was a distinctly Greek invention. The Greeks got their version of the phonetic alphabet from the Minoans, who used a script we now call Linear A. Bronze Age Greeks from Mycenae used Linear A with some small adaptations to write in Greek. We call this script Linear B. These writing systems were abjads, consonant-only alphabets like the Phoenician model. Around 730 BC, a Greek wanted to write down the epic poems of Homer. This proved problematic, as Greek poetry requires one to record the length of vowel sounds. So the Greeks came up with characters for 7 vowels. It is interesting to note that we only have 5. Recording the lengths of vowels was so important to the Greeks that they felt the need to distinguish a long E, eta, from the short E, epsilon, and a long O, omega, from the short O, omicron. From this fact, some have suggested that what we now recognize as an alphabet was probably invented for the sole purpose of writing poetry. This easy-to-use alphabet created a level of literacy in Greece unmatched in the ancient world. The increased nuance in writing allowed the Greeks to invent new disciplines of history and philosophy. Finally, the ability to record the artistic value of words with vowels, as well as their more practical functions, allowed the Greeks to dazzle the world and all civilizations to follow with new inventions of epic, poetry, tragedy, and comedy.